According to leaked posts on social media, it looks like Russia is staffing more and more of its frontline soldiers with foreign nationals from impoverished countries who are contracted to fight for Russia. But just what exactly are they signing up for? Where are they fighting? And what experience waits for them? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's get into it. Okay, I wanted to show you guys a couple of viral TikToks, and then we're going to do this long vlog of a Chinese combat volunteer. So this is supposedly Nepalese soldiers in the service of the Russian military. So you can see here, these guys absolutely loving the fact that they have all this gear, weapon systems, right? Bulletproof vests. What I find interesting is that these are very old school looking flak vests. You can see with these this Kevlar collar, and it looks like though there is inserts for ballistic plates. So, don't at me in the comments, but I'm of the belief that especially in something like trench warfare, where like nobody's moving that fast, you're not going to hump 10 kilometers a day. A heavier duty body armor like this that combines Kevlar and ceramic ballistic plates is actually going to be advantageous. The reason is because the whole point of plate carriers development was for special forces and light infantry forces in Iraq and Afghanistan that found themselves in firefights, but when they would hit IEDs or other explosives that deal damage with shrapnel or concussive blasts, they would be inside vehicles. So the plate carrier was a natural fit for the war. But in this conflict, you're spending less time in vehicles, but projectiles like artillery and cluster munitions and mortars are a much greater threat. So layered Kevlar is more likely to be able to absorb artillery shell fragments. You're less likely to get penetration, and you get improved coverage. Look, you can see these vests cover all the internal organs, right, down to almost below the diaphragm, which I think honestly would vastly improve survivability. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll take a plate carrier in a combat zone, like no cap. But when they actually did offer us plate carriers, I was like, no, I'm in good shape. I would rather just take my chances with the IOTV, which of course had this setup of ceramic plates and then a entire like sweater vest basically of Kevlar. These actual neck protectors are also beneficial because sometimes if a bullet or fragment hits your ceramic plate on your chest and then scatters, right? It'll hit and explode up, boom, like traveling up the plate where it can't penetrate, and it'll hit your neck. So having this fold out cover actually protects the neck quite well. It's really, I'm really surprised I don't see more of this type of gear in the service of Ukraine and Russia, where you see a lot of plate carriers. And it's funny because the brilliant commenters on Reddit are saying, "Oh, airsoft vests." Again, they're not airsoft vests. I think they're not military grade equipment, right? They're black. They don't have molly pouches, but that doesn't make them airsoft. And I'm not convinced that they're not soft armor. They're just not plate carriers. And these goobers who've only seen, highlight videos from special forces guys in Syria in 2015 don't appreciate the fact that if you fought in the GWAT from about 2003 to 2012, there's a good chance you had either an IBA or an IOTV that looked more like these, but it offered more protection. It was just heavier. Right. These vests have some soft armor, but again, I think these are inserts. I think these are inserts for ceramic plates. It's also interesting. You can see that they have unarmed AKs or unloaded AKs. And look at this. This guy's got a collapsible buttstock with, again, a pretty classic looking Russian helmet and helmet cover. But they also have modern waterproof gear. And you can see some of these guys, again, it looks like a mix of nationalities, but that would, again, make sense. Just waving to mom. Oh, my God. They have no idea. That's what's kind of wild to me. So here, this says Nepalese soldiers fighting for the Russian military. Here is one more. I think this is actually the same account. Now, here's what I thought was interesting. They're in these trenches, and you can see kind of the gear. One, note this guy's jacket. This is actually a Chinese military camo pattern. I think it's called a Type 19. Let me see if I can find this for you. PLA Type 19 camo. So, yeah, here we go. the PLA's camo is actually not too shabby. Here's a good look at PLA Type 19 camo. I actually specialty ordered one of these vests. And you can see these vests have no plates. Like, look at the fact that they just look like shirts. But note the pattern here. Let's see if we can get a little bit bigger of a look for you guys, because I really think this is important to understand sort of the Chinese surplus military. Oh, here we go. Here I think is a good one. So let's see. Etsy's got this. But again, it's not quite right. Maybe it's Type 9. Anyway, take a look at this. Tell me if you think I'm right. It looks about right. But they also got Soviet style Ushankas. They have mix and matched gloves. Literally, this dude has he's got his other glove right here. But they seem, what's notable is a total absence of combat gear, right? No vests, no magazine pouches, no weapons, not even a sidearm or anything like that. No radios. So I suspect these guys may actually be doing construction work, right? Preparing second and third defensive lines, remedial trenches, or performing some other kind of basic labor to free up combat soldiers to engage in combat. Yeah, I wonder if I could find this guy. I should find this guy on TikTok. Let me know in the comments if you want me to stay on this. But now this is only part of what I wanted to look at. What I really wanted to show you guys is a 3-minute video blog from a Chinese volunteer in combat with these Nepalese soldiers. But of course, before I do that, if you want the uncensored combat footage from some of these and other battles of the war, particularly what just dropped is the Battle of Yahidne. That's on combatvetnews.com. It's my premium site. You guys know YouTube cracking down on combat footage. And so I have my own premium site where I can show uncensored combat footage and do the deep dive analysis. It's, of course, drops twice a week. Any one of these tiers is going to get you access to those combat videos. But of course, if you want some shout outs or you want to support me, this is the best way. YouTube has become really strict, actually, about demonetizing my videos. I think after the Israel-Hamas conflict sort of revealed just how little they want war content on their platform. So if you want to support me, check us out, combatvetnews.com. Okay, take a look at this poor Chinese volunteers experience. So what's interesting, first off, well, I'll just let you see it. Yeah. So note, this is it's not quite a fob. I'm not sure what exactly you'd call it. Usually it is the interior part of a perimeter where soldiers are protected enough that they can do a level of rest and refit when they're not on shift. It's the most basic form of kind of like headquarters. And usually what it'll mean is that there's soldiers that are out there either fighting or occupying perimeter positions, and that there's a rotation. For example, you'll do 12 hours in the position and then 12 hours off, resting, refitting, getting a chance to eat, drink, sleep, and replenish your ammunition, and that this is that area. You can see there's bags full of sand or dirt blocking this window, so it's definitely a defensive position.
第三天被围的第三天受伤了送不出去在这儿等死了
So again, they say they're surrounded, and that this was supposedly in early November, and that this is taking place in Zaporizhzhia province, which I find kind of interesting because we'll try to take this back to early November. Let's pull up the map here. Let's take it back to early November, and we'll try to discern where I think this fighting is taking place. Right, so. Taking us way back here. Again, this is like November. I think of the first 5 days of the month being okay. So let's see what we have here in terms of, so I bet he's fighting. This is one salient that we've seen. Yeah, I bet this is exactly it. This is exactly where you'd expect these guys that they're surrounded, right? So here is November 30. Here's October, right? And watch, there's only a few places in Zaporizhzhia where there's this level of substantive change, and it's only taking place, right there. There's a little bit we just saw in Volodar, which is possible. Oh, no. So I'm sorry. It's in Salvirne. So again, not Zaporizhzhia, but yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that is exactly where this took place. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because now you're into December and there's pushing here. So this right here, this little spot is right where this is taking place. And again, it's not clear that this was a Ukrainian effort to liberate this territory. I suspect these guys are in here. It says it's actually a VDV unit. So that should tell you something right there about how desperate they were. Even Russia's elite VDV is still staffed heavily with total volunteers. So let's see if we can pull up the layers and see if we can find the actual house these guys are in. Is there even a house here? I'm having a hard time seeing one. It looks like maybe there's a little bit of housing like in this area. And it looks like maybe along this street. Oh, wait, there may be some buildings or structures around here. This is probably my guess as to where they are. Again, I wish this had slightly better satellite photos. That's my thesis, though, that these guys are in here in this region. It's also possible that they are in this area here. That this is where there's also heavy fighting, and it would explain how they're in some of these houses, right? So we back it up. Here's the first, and then here's kind of the 15th. Yeah, it's not quite right. They could be here. But again, for them to be surrounded as they talked about, it's going to have to be somewhere in this region here. So you could see, right, these guys looking pretty desperate. You could see, again, a classic move, them trying to stay warm under a whole bunch of blankets. If you've ever been really cold in the field, you know this is exactly how you feel. According to one of the comments, these guys are actually Nepalese. Now, notice that they have real combat vests on, but note that this is a full vest. You can see it's got the MOLLE plates. This also looks to have a fairly robust amount of Kevlar protection. It looks closer to an IOTV. You can see here, this vest looks more like a plate carrier. Again, here he is pointing out his building. Yeah, they're in a village of some sort. It says 4th day of encirclement. Again, it's also possible that this is simply a region listed as contested. So he's definitely in a village of some kind, abutting a field. I wish I could give you guys more data, but again, it really makes me think that it's probably this cluster of buildings here, because we know it's not a lone house, and this stuff up here is like a lone house. I think it's right here, honestly. I think it was Russian controlled, which is technically true, right? They are controlling this building. And then at some point they were forced to withdraw. There's not really any other place it could be. Maybe if there were some changes in this Novo Prokopivka, like, yeah, we're seeing little shifts here. This is late October, but then we don't really see any changes here. We see some Ukrainian liberation efforts, but again, you're not seeing them change hands in these villages, right? So again, this is listed as contested. So they could have been surrounded for a time, and then the Ukrainians withdrew, and then they resurrounded. It's totally possible.
昨天晚上连夜送这个伤员出去，送不出去，组织了突围也没办法。
So again, a breakout is this guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about. A breakout is exactly what you do when you're surrounded, which is a concentrated attack meant to penetrate the enemy's encirclement of you, and just create an opening long enough for your forces to exfiltrate, to prevent from being trapped and surrounded. But it sounds like it failed, and they are forced to retreat back to this building where they are holed up.
这是被围困的第5天。昨天晚上，
5 days of encirclement.
发动夜袭，咱们买了一个反突机，把伤员连夜送出去了。
Yeah, this sounds like very much the fighting towards the end of the counteroffensive, where you had Ukrainian forces pushing, trying to break the Russian lines, and then you had Russian forces counterattacking hard. And it seems like, again, despite robust fighting, there hasn't actually been a change to control. No one can sustain control.
就剩这么几个人了。
Notice there are fewer people every time. 1, 2, 3,
就剩这么几个人了，扛不住了。
and himself makes 5. Compare that to, of course, on day 1, right? You had 1, 2,
这是被围的
3,
第3
4,
天，
5,
被围的第
6, 7, and then the 8th, the casualty, right? So
住了，伤还好，伤员已经送出去了，还有2个骨折的。
he's still saying he has 2 guys who are have fractures, right? So more minor, less emergent wounds. But you see, they basically have civilian sleeping bags, just trying to stay warm. Again, the thing that you forget is that in combat, especially when you're cut off, you don't get the calories you need, and your body compensates by generating less body heat. Literally, your metabolism starts to just downshift, which means you get colder much faster and much easier.
这已经是被围困了第6天了。
Notice again the rigid plate here that shows this is a plate carrier.
今天外面呢枪炮声，枪声大作，没几个人了。
Right, he says right now on the perimeter about 70 to 80 men. So the fact that there are 6 to 8 men resting and a 70 to 80 man perimeter says this is about a company-sized element conducting this defense.
7、80，咱们这儿据点20来人，加起来也就100。
Okay, so he says there's 20 men in the holdout, about 100 in all, so about a company size. There must be more. They must be spread out, which is a sound tactic, right? What you don't want to do is concentrate all your people into a single house, because then one good artillery strike is going to destroy your entire reserve. Instead, you spread them out over 5 or 6 houses with 4 or 5 men in each, and it just simply allows you to reduce your risk.
来号人3面被围。
So again, surrounded on 3 sides. You may be asking, Paul, how's that possible, right? Well, the answer, what I suspect, is that, again, it could be something like this region here. And what they may have is a situation where they can't leave because Ukrainian forces still have observation and fields of fire on this cluster of buildings. So it makes me think more and more that it may be this Novoprokopivka region where this whole road is under observation. And because it's observed, they can't exfil easily. Again, it's a little hard to tease out the truth here, just because, again, a lot of this fighting is represented as these lines of control. But when you're talking about a contested region, this is exactly what that contested region might look like. So that's what I think. It means that, yeah, they can't break out because the Ukrainian forces will just deliver artillery. The drones will spot them before they can move.
还是第6天，还是第6天。我觉得应该再拍一点什么。还是第6天。
No internet connection. Interesting, but that guy's still typing away on his phone. Maybe preparing texts for family or sending texts in the hope that if the phone gets a connection, it'll send automatically, right? The way phones tend to continuously send texts.
都没有网，那就看以后能不能发出来了。现在这玩意儿是硬通货呀。
Right now, this is the hard currency. Yeah, prison rules for sure. Remember that in a lot of cases, the reason you have these foreign volunteers, is that the purchasing power parity, right? What is to us an underpaid Russian conscript is to a rural Chinese villager or to a Nepalese farmer an absolutely eye-popping salary, right? Like, how much salary would you need to fight for the Russian military, right? What if they offered you $1 million a year? Enough that even fighting for 3 months would take care of your family for a long, long time. Would you consider it? What would that contract look like?
这玩意儿硬通货，还是第6天。现在情况呢，越来越不好了。昨天晚上乌军的装甲车坦克。
Interesting said situation. So last night, Ukrainian AFVs, so he's talking about armored fighting vehicles, probably Bradleys, came up beside the
都
holdout.
已经出现在这个据点旁边了，但是他可能没有发现我们，因为天色也较暗，他打到另外一所房子。
And he says they didn't spot us, they were hitting another house, which makes me think more and more that it's either this strip of buildings here or they are cut off. Let's see. Because if it's not VDV guys, 136th Motor Rifle Brigade, that seems more plausible. They could also be in somewhere like here, right? Because this would make sense. Look, it looks like there's a cluster of buildings, but then they're surrounded by open fields and there's no roads, meaning that you could have Ukrainian forces operating all in this area if this mapping is like more fluid.
差一点。
So it looks like an artillery shell may have penetrated the holdout house. Right? It looks like everybody kind of evac'd after that.
被炸飞了，被炸飞了，腿都被崩了。来的时候一车人。
Interesting. It says a truck full of men came in.
还剩几个嘛？数得过来了吧？
Damn, he says, how many remain? You can count on your fingers. Here's all that remains. Wow, just like 4 or 5 dudes. Surreal.
就剩这么几个人。 还想来吗？
No, he's joking, want to go again.
我被炸伤了，我
And
被
he
炸。
says, okay, this is where he's recuperating. You can see this is the nicest place we've seen basically in this entire conflict. It's just got out of the medical station. So he's got food, hot water. Looks like a schedule. I wonder if we can learn something from this. I don't know what this means. But it looks fairly recently typed on there. 6 something, 6:30 to 8:30, 8:40 to 9:40, 10 to 1500, 5:30 to 16:30. Interesting. If anybody knows Russian and can tell me what that says, I'd appreciate it.
医务室出来，现在出来了，休养一下，被炸伤了。
Looks like him and another buddy. Look at this dude's rocking Crocs. He's got a little cat.
请不好意
Guys,
思。
fun fact, if you're recuperating from a wound, you don't want wild animals in your stuff. Anyway, that's where it stops. Guys, what's telling to me about this is that the Russian military is in some of its most critical areas of fighting, right? This was early November in Zaporizhzhia. They are staffing it with conscripts or really contract soldiers, foreign nationals, which is, again, a sign of a Russia who's like pretty desperate. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Thank you so much. Hit like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Cheers.